Scott Milton with Ace LA's Custom Canopies. I thought it was time that we did another painting video. So in today's series of videos, we're going to take you through some advanced airbrush techniques. In the previous videos, the video series 1, we did basic painting techniques, which covered the basic sanding and priming of the canopy and did a simple paint job. In the next series we did the advanced painting techniques. We took you through the paint job itself and added some wording and some 3D effects to it. And today we're going to do what I call the metal tearing. It's an advanced airbrush technique, and it's going to be similar to the canopies that I have here. As you can see in this one, we have, it looks like the canopy is made of metal, and that the metal is being torn back and away and revealing something on the underside of it. And here we have on the windshield, looks like the metal is being exploded back, have the spider coming out. We won't be doing the spider this time. That might be on our next video, even a little more advanced airbrush techniques. But here's some other examples of the metal tearing away. In this one I have the metal tearing down away from the top, revealing a yellow underside. And in this canopy here, this is one of the first ones I did. We actually have kind of monster theme going on with the monster claws tearing through the canopy. And just one other, this one is just metal being torn away from the windshield area. So what we're going to do is we're not going to go show you all of the sanding and priming and that sort of thing, because we covered that in the first series. But what I am going to do, the next step, I'm going to create the tear as though the canopy is divided in half, and this will be a regular paint scheme, and then the metal is being torn back as though the wind is blowing it off of the canopy to reveal a carbon fiber look to the front of the canopy, as though that's the underside of it, under the metal. So what I'm going to do is basically divide the canopy in half with tape to create my basic tear pattern, and then I'm going to go ahead and paint this area of the canopy, the paint scheme that I want, and I'm going to paint the carbon fiber look up here. And once that's all done, the next step will come back together and I'll show you how to lay out the tape and create the tear pattern itself. It's really fairly simple. Anybody can do this if you have basic airbrushing skills, but you've got to have kind of the mind to create the look. You've got to kind of know what the metal would look like as it's tearing back and that sort of thing, where to shadow, where to put the black and the white, and you'll see all of that later. So just real quickly, these are the basic items we use. This is all covered in the first video series of the basic painting techniques. This is my white Painter's Touch Rust-Oleum primer. Yes, it's spray can, believe it or not. Most everything I do is a spray can. And then these are some of the basic items that I'll be using. Your 3M blue 1/8 inch blue tape to lay out all the designs. And I use these masking tapes to cover with. And then we'll be using my Iwata Eclipse dual action airbrush. This is a basic airbrush that many people use. It's gravity fed, got the little cup on the top, and as I said, dual action. This is definitely something you want to get. Some of the single action guns are going to be a little harder to do this kind of stuff with. But so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to go sand and prime and get to painting. When we come back together next, I'll have the colors basically done and we'll start on that tear pattern. Okay, as you can see, I have now taken our canopy and created the basic paint scheme. I have divided the canopy where I want the tear to be. The front section now has a carbon fiber look to it. And then back behind it is the regular paint scheme. Okay, I decided to go with something fairly simple. Green windshield and the white with the black letterings, or white with black shadow letterings. So what I've done now is I've taken my 1/8 inch 3M tape and I've taped off the area of the carbon here. And now I'm going to take this low tack transfer paper. I found this makes a real good mask. And I'm going to tear it off in strips and start laying it over the canopy just like so. Now you're not going to be able to make it conform exactly to the canopy just perfect. There's going to be lots of wrinkles, but for the most part those are okay. You can use a little squeegee pad like this to flatten the paper out, and don't worry about the little wrinkles left behind. Now up here on the nose I don't care about it because that's not the part we're going to be working with, so it doesn't matter how it ends up. Just back here behind the blue tape. So I'm going to go ahead and tape off the entire canopy just like you see me doing here, and then when we come back I'll show you how to draw out the tear pattern that we're going to paint, and we'll cut it out. Okay, as you can see I've taken the transfer paper and I've laid it over the entire canopy, at least the area that we're concerned with painting. We're going to be airbrushing this, so I don't have to do much about covering every single square inch as though I were painting the canopy. The airbrush will pretty much concentrate in these areas. You may get some overspray up here, but that's okay. You can sand it off because this has already been clear coated to protect the paint that's underneath it. Same thing up here. If you get some overspray, just sand it off. Okay, so as you can probably see, I have gone ahead and laid out a rough line of the tear pattern that I'm going to create here. One thing I wanted to show you real quick was when you lay down the other transfer paper, you're going to have overlap areas here. And you want to go ahead and eliminate as much of that overlap as you can. You don't have to be perfect, but just take your razor blade and follow the edge of the overlap. Don't press too hard so you're not really cutting into the paint. You may go into the clear some, but that's not a big deal. Bring that up and then peel off the overlap. Makes it easier to cut out the design. Now I do want to say that when it comes to this part of the paint, this is something that I can't really teach you. You've got to have some creativeness. You've got to be able to imagine as though it were metal, as though it's tearing back and rolling over. You know, even myself, I'm not good at this. I couldn't visualize this all on my own. I went on YouTube and I watched videos of other painters who have done tear patterns, and I watched how they did it, and so I developed my own technique. And then don't worry too much about it. It doesn't have to be perfect. You may think, well, it doesn't look like it would all fold up and lay here to a point on the nose. That doesn't really matter. Nobody's going to care about that. We're not looking for perfection, just the concept. So I've gone ahead and lightly traced the pattern. Just take a pencil and get an idea of what you want to do. There's going to be some curled edge parts out at the end. So we draw that in. Don't make it too smooth, but don't make it too rough, the edges. Okay, I'm going to bring back here. Now I'm going to tell you a little secret. I actually had a little area right back here. I don't know if you could even see it, but this little spot right here was a mistake. It was a fingerprint that got on the canopy before I cleared it, and I didn't notice it. So it's permanently in there. Now I could go back, if I wasn't creating this tear pattern, I could go back and put my masks on here again of these letters and white the letters, and be no problem. But I'm going to go ahead and just cover it over with this tear pattern. So I brought the tear pattern up to cover my mistake. So you can always cover your mistakes up. So we're going to go ahead and just kind of draw this out, and I may tidy it up here in a minute when we're off the video. But basically doing like this, I'm going to bring the tear up, maybe something like that. And bring it down here. Okay, as though this section was torn back, and then we're going to divide it here. Bring it back up. Again, it could be any random pattern. You can go online and search for tear patterns and metal tearing, and you'll find a lot of great airbrush artists out there, mainly working in the automotive industry. You'll find guys doing motorcycle tanks and all that, and you can see examples of the work that they've done, the types of patterns and the looks. But again, it's just something that can't really be taught. You've just got to have some sort of imagination and just kind of create it. And of course, the more often that you do it, the better you'll become at it. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure that this is the pattern that I want. When we come back, I'm going to show you how to take the razor blade and cut it out, and then we'll actually go paint it. All right, I have the line of the tear drawn in pretty much the way that I want to. To tell you the truth, this is actually the very first time that I've created tears that go this far back. And so it's going to actually take a little bit of finesse in the airbrushing to figure out the crinkles and that sort of thing when we go to paint it in. But it'll be good. It's fun for me, and it's fun for you, and my first time, your first time. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and use the razor blade to cut along the blue 3M tape here. And then I'll cut the lines for the tear, and then we'll remove this section. Now, one thing you're going to want to do is do your best. I've already pre-cut this other side, so I'm just going to bring it to it here. So that's already cut. When we cut this out, you're going to want to keep these pieces, because we're going to use them later to create the shadowed look, to make it look like it's sitting over the paint job we've already done. So go ahead and take your knife. I've chose to end the tear right here at the air vent for the canopy. And this is another thing, you don't have to follow the line exactly. You've got a rough pattern, but don't worry about if your razor blade doesn't follow the line to a T, or if you decide on the fly that you just didn't really like a bump in here like this, it's too sharp, maybe I want to make it a little rounder, I'll just go ahead and make it round. So but then just follow the cut or the drawing with your razor blade. Just like so. It takes a little practice. After a while you get the hang of it. Keep your blade in that spot. And when you go to turn, I decided not to go all the way down to the tape for that one. And you know what? I'm not real happy with that one going out like it's drawn. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go this way. And then I'm going to come back. And we'll see how that turns out. Maybe I'll like it, maybe I won't. So I brought this out to here. And here I'm bringing it all the way up to the paint, because this is going to be my dividing. Just remember, we're looking as though the metal tore here at the nose from the extreme air pressure of your flight and is being ripped back in sections along the canopy. So this section, if you folded it up, would be here, and you've got the dividing line of the canopy, so kind of another section here, the same on this side. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out this area here, and then I will take off a part of it, then I'll show you how to come back and peel off this area. We now have one side cut and removed, so I'm going to go ahead and show you just peeling the other side off. I just go ahead and identify the pieces. This is a separate piece from this part, so I'll put on here left top, left bottom. That way when I'm laying it out here on the table like I've done with these, I don't lose track of which piece goes where. Most of the time it's pretty obvious, but sometimes it's not. So we're just removing there the cut. Now here it started to pull away. It didn't cut thoroughly where I overlapped this material, so I need to go in there and cut it better and lift that up with the blade and try to pull it together. Anywhere that you have the creases in it, in the material, you may experience this. So as I pull out, we'll see what kind of problems that we have. Try to keep it all together as one unit. But if it comes apart, it's okay. As long as you have the basic pieces, you can piece it all back together where you need to. This is probably going to come apart because it's actually the two different layers of paper that I put down. So we'll take that off there. Just keep pulling it back. That was the other one. So it always helps if you can use one piece of paper for your tear sections, but sometimes you just can't avoid that. So bring these out. Hopefully end up with nice clean tear through the tips. That feels a little bit hard to pull up, so I'm going to cut right there where that fold in the paper is. Sometimes it doesn't cut through all the way. Alright, so we've got that. I'll lay it over here so I can keep it in order. And this will go along with it. I'll have to figure out exactly how that piece together. Something like that. And this one goes in here somewhere. Keep hold of it. So now I'll do this next one. This one should come out a little easier. There's not as many tears, but we do have an overlap here, so I want to make sure that it's cut good through there. Okay. All right. So now we're done. You can go back, use your fingers to kind of lay down the edges just in case they've been pulled up, and especially in the areas that you have creases. Look at them, and sometimes there's going to be little bits of paper that didn't get cleanly cut off, so you can go back here and just trim off those rough edges. Press everything down. And then we're going to go over to the paint booth and mix up our gray base paint to make the metal look, and we'll spray that and then start showing you how to create the rolls and the tear effects. Alright, we're here in the paint booth and we're set up to go ahead and spray our base color. So this is supposed to be metal tearing back. So basically what I do, this isn't the perfect way to do it. It's kind of a cheat method. If you look online, watch a lot of other guys who do this. There's some other colors that they'll add in to create more of a metal look. They'll add in some blues or something like that. But the basic colors that all of them will use is just a black and a white. You're going to put white, then add a little bit of black to just make a gray color, which is sort of a metal looking color. And then we're going to spray this area with our base gray. Then after that we'll come back and add our highlights in white to create the curves and the rolls that we want, and then use the black for the creases and that sort of thing. So I'm just going to show you how I mix it up. This is going to take more than what my this little holder will hold, so I'm going to go ahead and mix them up in this cup. I want to make sure that it's clean and dust free in there, so I'll use a little bit of my lacquer thinner just to wipe it out. These are House of Color ready to spray 4-ounce containers. Purchase them online. I think it's TCP Global is where I get them. There's plenty of other places. So I'm going to put some white in here, and this is just something you're doing it to feel. You'll have to play with the colors, but I'm just going to pour some white in, about like so. This is the, again, House of Color, just straight black. And I'm just going to pour a little bit of black in, and we'll just see what that creates. See if I like it. My fancy schmancy stir stick here, an old screwdriver. So that's come up kind of light on the light side. I want to add a little bit more black to it to create a little darker gray. I'm going to add a few more drops of the black. And we're going to see what that does. Okay. I think that's pretty good. I think I'm pretty happy with this color. You'll see it when I start spraying it here. So I'm going to do my best to get it all mixed together and pour it into the cup. I actually may not have made enough. We'll see. I'm going to take the lid and put it on just because you'll be moving the cup around a lot when you're spraying, so you don't want to spill it. And then we're just simply going to start laying this gray down. Now normally I would have my mask on when using these paints, okay? And I would have the fan on to suck the fumes out. But for the video, we don't want to have the fan on. You wouldn't be able to hear me. So I'm just doing this without. So we're just laying down this gray base. As you can see, there's a lot of overspray that builds up in the air. That's why you want to wear your mask. Just making sure that all the color underneath is gone. All we have is our gray base color showing. Okay, we got the first side painted. I actually didn't make up enough paint the first time, surprisingly, and so I've had to make up another batch. Now, when it comes to matching the color, we don't have to worry about it too much. First off, you're looking at pretty much a divided canopy. I was able to get one side done. As long as the other side is fairly close in the color, nobody's going to sit there and look at both sides and try to figure out that they're different bases. But so I've mixed up another batch. So we're going to go ahead and continue spraying this other side. I've got an area of the paper here that's kind of pulled up on me. So I'm going to press it down. Spray over the fingerprint. Okay, so we've got that area. Now, what I can do is, since I have enough of this color left, I can go ahead and come back over here and put another coat on this side just to go ahead and match the color. Okay, it ran out. We got a little bit left over in my paint cup here. And we want to try to get out of these fumes as quickly as we can. So that's the base color. When we come back, we're going to use our white to create the effect of the rolls as though the sunlight is hitting on the rolls and showing that roll pattern. And we use our black to create the wrinkles and creases in the metal. Well, we're ready now to do the rolled tear effect of the metal. As you can see, we have the area all grade primered. It's been dried and it's sanded real lightly. So hopefully everything's smooth. You want the surface as smooth as possible, and it'll help for the paint when you lay it down to look as smooth as possible. Sometimes if it's a little rough, if you sand it with too rough of sandpaper, then when you use the airbrush and lay it down trying to create a shadow, it'll be very granular looking, and so you don't want that effect. So you want it as smooth as possible when you start out. So as I said before, this is the first time I've done this kind of tear pattern, and so it's going to be a little unique. I'm going to have to play with it to get everything right. But what I'm going to be using are these two paints, just the black and the white. We use the white to create the tops of the rolls, and we use the black to create the depth, the valley of the rolls as it's coming back curled up. So the white is simulating kind of the sunlight reflecting off the highest parts, and the black simulates the shadowed areas. And so usually right along this area where the roll is started, we want white along there. And then you just have to kind of use your imagination as to where you think there might be rolled areas in the rest of it. This again is something where you can't really be taught this necessarily. I mean, you've got to have some creativity, but there's nothing wrong with going on to YouTube and watching tons of videos of guys doing this stuff and just copying their designs exactly to start with. And then once you've done it a few times, you'll get the feel for it, and you can kind of do your own thing as you go along. So I already have the white here in the airbrush. And so we'll get the camera guy to zoom up here. So what I'm going to try to do is to create the first white ridge, the roll part on here. I'm going to follow up. I'm sorry, one thing I forgot to do, I have two separate areas here. And I'm going to go ahead and tape over this side since I'm not working on it yet, because I may not have the same roll and stuff over there. So I'm going to start here. Just doing it very light. You probably cannot even see it right now on the camera, because I kind of just want to get an idea of where I'm going to put my line. And then we can get a little brighter. So that'll be the first roll there. Then for sure, the other areas where you're going to have rolls will be out here towards the edge. So I'm just going to create one this way. Put one here. Now let's see, we have a white. I think what I might do is create one out here. And again, this is my first time doing this type, so I'm just going to play with it and see how it turns out. A lot of times you'll get this all painted, and with it all taped up, it just doesn't look very good. You're not sure how it's going to look, but once you take the tape off and you see it in its entirety, it usually turns out all right. So I'm going to keep laying my white in here where I want it. And then when we come back, I'll start using the black and we'll start creating the shadows. There's one part that I wanted to show you about the white before I switched over to the black. I've been putting in the lines where I wanted it. I needed a couple more lines here, I realized, before I started. So what I'm sitting here doing is trying to visualize how this is going to work. This part is rolling over, so we have the white here to show where the sun's hitting on the top of the roll. Then it's going to dip down, so I'm going to do black here. So I realized I need another white line here where it'll come up again and then roll out to the tip. Okay, so you can sort of visualize what's going to be happening here. Well, the same thing, it's going to roll down into the valley here, but that's too far before it gets to this roll. So I decided I'm going to go ahead and try to put another roll in here, make it a little curved roll. The other thing I wanted to show you is that when you use the airbrush, you can create more fine lines the closer you get to it, and real hard lines. And you want to do that first when you're creating that sun spot. But then when you're done, you've got the way you want, then kind of back off and start going over it lightly. I don't even know if you can really see this, but I'm going on either side of it to kind of soften the hardness of the line. Where it's not so much of a line, it's more of just a light area there. Okay, so I think that I've now got it the way I want it. So what I'm going to do is quickly clean my airbrush out. I take the rest of the stuff, dump it back in. I've got my lacquer thinner that I use to clean with here in this little bottle. So we'll clean the this part out. Doesn't have to be too perfect when you're going from white to black, but going from black to white, you got to clean it out pretty good. Okay, so we'll take the black, put it in. Now we're going to work on creating those valleys. And again, just as a reminder, normally I'm wearing my mask whenever even I'm doing the airbrush stuff because it's pretty toxic fumes. And normally I would have the air flow going, but because we're videoing, I can't do that, or else you wouldn't be able to really hear it. So that's why I'm not worrying about it right now. We've got the door open and the fumes are not too bad. So I'm going to start in here at the very edge, and we're going to create the first roll. Actually, looks like I've got some overspray from the white that I want to take care of. So just take your tack cloth and wipe over it to get rid of the overspray. Alright, then we'll get our black. First thing to do is the very edge. Want a nice dark edge, but not too far out. You want to stay real close. I'm really not painting the edge, I'm painting away from it, and the overspray is getting on the edge. It does take a steady hand, that's for sure, and it takes practice to learn how to do it. Some people will use tools it's kind of hard to do on these canopies, but some people will use something to brace themselves when they are doing their airbrushing stuff. But for now, my hand is steady enough to do what I want to do with it. Okay, so now I've got the dark line. I'm going to back off a little bit and start to blend it in with the white. Alright, so that's going to be the start of the first roll. Now we're going here for the big one, and we're just going to kind of have some fun with this. Let's see how it turns out. It's okay if you're not perfect retracing a line, depending on how thick an area you're working with. This is a pretty big area, so I'm going to be creating a fairly large line here. So I've got the basic line done. Now we'll do the softening, try to blend it in. And then you can just have fun with it. I'm going to take it up a little further right here and create some depth. Blend it in right here. I'll blend it this way. You start to see the roll sort of appearing. Keep this where you can see it. Okay, so that basically gives us our first roll. So I'm going to keep working the rolls back this way and get as much of the black done as I can. And then we'll come back and start to put the final touches on it. We'll have to use the white again to go and re-highlight some of the high spots and that sort of thing. But for now, it's progressing and we'll see how it looks. As you can see, I have gone ahead and done both sides of the canopy. Now if I hold this up to you, you're looking at that, and probably like my cameraman said, he just doesn't get it. Doesn't see how this is all going to look. And you know, truthfully, when I look at it at this stage, I'm like, wow, it looks like a zebra a little bit. So I've created my rolls and my valleys, and I've played with a few things, created a few different areas. If we can get the camera to zoom up here, I'm going to finish up, put the final touches on here on the very tips. Just go in and put a really dark black to make it look like it's rolling down. Make sure you get all the spots. I'm going to kind of curve this up to the white line. Okay, we're going here. Dark black tip, and then lightly out to the white. Alright, you can see that the black kind of comes up over the white and sort of covers the white up, so that's why we're going to go back to our white here in a second and re-highlight some of this stuff. Now, if you can look here, you know, just in some of these areas, you don't have to be so perfect. You don't have to worry about it. It's metal tearing. You don't know what metal tearing is always going to look like. It's not going to be perfect rolls and that sort of thing. There's going to be creases at different times. If you mess up, or if you want to just have fun, you can create a, let's create a line right here. Okay, the metal started to curve that way. We'll just kind of soften it up. Rolling it up to the white. Okay, now I'll come back with my white and I'll put a white line right there to make it look like a raised area. But so, you know, just play with it, kind of have fun. Obviously, if you're doing a canopy that you want to fly, well, you got to take your time, make sure you know what you're doing. Probably want to practice first on some cardboard or blank pieces of paper or whatever to kind of practice this design. So there's a couple of areas here where I've actually done that. I've created a split, like right here. I've created a split, darken that middle a little more, and then soften it up towards the white. I'll come back with white and create a highlight there. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my white again. And this time we're going from black to white, so we've got to make sure that we clean the cup up pretty good. Although it's not the worst thing in the world. You probably never ever notice that it's a little bit gray when you're working on this kind of medium. If you were working on a pure white medium, then you have to be darn sure that you've got your black completely cleaned out. I don't know if you can hear that. Kind of got a bubbling sound to it. I think that means that my O-ring up here is wearing out. I need to replace it. We're going to put our white back in. Now I'm just going to go in here and create that highlight to show the top of the sleeve. It's not the prettiest thing. I'll come back with the black and soften it up. So basically what I'm going to do now is come back and try to re-highlight the white, the top of the wheel, to make them crisp again from the black being put over it. It does take a steady hand. This part you want to take your time on. This is kind of the final look of it. Okay, so I'm going to go back over the white areas again to crisp them up. And then I'm simply going to let this dry for a few minutes. It doesn't take long with these airbrush paints. Maybe about 10 minutes to dry, and then we'll go back over to the hobby shop and we'll remove all the paper and we'll see what the result is. As you can see, we have the finished product here. At least, well, it doesn't look very finished, I know, but we're going to remove the masking tape here and see what it looks like. So basically everything is done, and this is the major part of what I wanted to show you in this video. So the next step is really going to be putting another coat of clear on this canopy and then letting that dry and let it sand. Sand it down, and then I'll come back and put a few more finishing touches. Now the next thing actually that I'll show you after we get all this off is coming in and putting the 3D effects that make it look like the rolls and the tears are actually above the rest of the paint. That's why we've kept these pieces from earlier that we cut out to create the rolls. After we've cleared it and sanded it, then we'll put those back on over what we've just painted and create the 3D effect. So as we get closer, we'll start to see what this is going to actually look like against the rest of the paint. Now, the one part that's always a little nerve-wracking for me is to see how the edges turn out. Did I get them nice and neat? I'm pretty sure there's going to be some areas in this one that where the crinkles were, that may not be so great. And I may have to do something to touch them up later, and if so, I'll probably put that on here to show you. So peeling that back. Be careful using your fingers to get something like this up, because then you'll end up scraping some of the paint off inadvertently. Alright, so we're starting to make our way. Looks like some rolls, I think. I see a couple areas right here where it didn't get down perfect, so some of the paint bled through. But we can clean that up later. So far, I'm actually pretty happy with how it's come out. And again, there may be some of you guys out there that are perfectionists, and you're looking at this and you're going, oh, come on, the metal would never do like that. It would never fold like that. It would never look like that. And all I have to say is go do your own paint job to make it look better. This one's mine, and I'm pretty happy with it. I'm no Picasso. Almost done. A little bit of the glue residue there. When I say glue, just the tacky stuff from this masking paper. Okay, so there it is. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and peel the this blue tape off. And there's the finished product. As you can see, it's got the roll and depth, roll here out to the edges. Now, this looks good. You could clear coat that. Once the clear gets on it, it really makes it pop. But we're going to do a few things to make it really stand out. After we clear coat it, we'll come back, put the papers on it, and we'll put in the shadows to where it looks like these pieces are up above the rest of the paint. We'll also do one last step. After it's clear coated, I'll come back and put this tape back here again and put a bright, tiny white stripe, a line across here. That makes it look like the light is hitting the roll right there as it's rolling up. And then we'll put some shadowing under here because this would be dark. This area here would be dark because it's above everything else. And so we'll put the final touches on it in the next segment, but I think it's looking pretty good so far. Back in the hobby shop again, we have the canopy has now been clear coated. We've cleared what we've done here as far as the metal tear effect. Sat overnight and dried, and so this morning I came and sanded it down so it has a dull finish again. And what I've done is I'm taking my 1/8 inch tape, and I'm going back and taping along the edge of the tear, or actually the roll is really what it is. Because if you can see, if you zoom up here close, there's a hard white line left from the paint that we laid down. And it just doesn't look good. So I'm taking this 1/8 inch tape and I'm laying it back along this line, but I'm not laying it exactly up to the line. I'm leaving a little tiny bit of black between it and the line. And we're going to take the airbrush and come back and paint that white, and that'll represent where the light is shining right on the edge of the roll where it's coming back. Then there's a few other things we're going to do. We want to, at this time now, take these pieces of paper that we have left over, and we're going to put it back on the tears so that we can do our shadowing. Now, this is the shadowing. When you get good at it and you've practiced quite a bit and you've worked with your paints and you know your mixture, that sort of thing, and just kind of your particular gun, how it sprays and all of that, you can do the shadowing without having to put these back on. But this is a good way to do it if you're not really practiced and you don't get your paint back on top here. But because we are working with a gray and black mixture here, and you're going to be using black to create the shadows under here, then it's not a big deal if you get some up on it. So like I said, you can do it without putting these back on, but I'm going to go ahead and put them back on because that's the way I like to do it. So I'm going to continue and put the rest of these back on, and then we'll go over there to the paint shop again and do the shadowing. We're ready to do the shadowing now. I want to show you how I do my black mix. Although these bottles are pre-mixed at the ratio you need from the store, I like to go ahead and thin this down to create a thinner paint so I can really do my shadows better. So I just put, and there's no ratio, it's just kind of a feel. I'm going to pour a little black in here. Take a little of my lacquer thinner, pour it in here, and then mix it together real well. And it'll just allow for a smoother, softer look to the paint as it goes on. I guess there's kind of less paint, so it goes on much lighter, and you can control it better that way. Alright, so what we're going to do, obviously we're putting in shadow effect as though there is light coming down this direction onto the canopy. So we want to shadow the areas underneath here, underneath the edges, so it'll be here. I've kind of pre-done one here, here, that sort of thing, okay, to where it looks like the light is shining over it. So take your spray gun, kind of test an area, see how it's spraying. So you can get really light and then add to it if you need to. So let's take we'll start here. And you can see the paper's lifting up some on here. That'll happen. And as I say, you can, we're trying to create the effect that this roll is up fairly high off of the canopy, so we're putting the shadow down here lower. If you were wanting the effect that it was very close to the canopy, then you would do the shadow right at the edge here. Let's see if we can get this. Okay, so something like that. I'm going to fill in back here a little bit. Okay, now we'll come down here, create this area. A little darker down here since it's in the black. And this would be where there's more shadow because there's less light down below the canopy. I'm going to go ahead and put a little black around the edge here. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of this area and show you what it looks like after that. Up here I've gone ahead and taped off my corners to add the 3D effect, so I'm going to do that. You don't have to do this, I just think it makes the corners look really nice. Simple as that. Okay, when we come back, I'll show you the shadowing and then we'll do this white area here. Now we have all the shadowing done here on the canopy. As you can see, it doesn't take a lot, but already, even without the clear on it, you can tell it just makes it look better. It makes it look as though these things are standing off of the canopy paint itself. I've done the 3D effect here. One thing I want to point out to you, you just got to be careful. When I laid the tape down so that I could paint this corner, I didn't come back and put another layer of tape to keep from the overspray, so there's a little black line here. You may not even be able to see it in the video. There's a little black line right here that's overspray from painting this. So you just got to be careful to really look at those things, and all I have to do is go and sand it off. But it's really a pain in the butt if you don't see that and you clear coat it, and it'll really pop out when you clear coat it, and then it's going to be a lot of work to go back and try to take care of that. So what I'm going to do now, the last thing, I've got my white paint loaded up in the airbrush. We're going to come back and paint this white area here that I was talking about. Remember, there was a hard line of white left from the edge of the paint when we laid down all the gray and stuff that we did here. So I'm going to come back and use as little white as possible to fill in this gap here. And it'll make it look as though the sunlight is shining right on the edge where it's rolling over. Okay? And you know what? I totally forgot to tape this off. And I should have. But we're not going to worry about it. Because I've got the 1/8 inch tape there, I can come back and lightly sand that area and get off the white that's going to be there from it. Just go ahead and take the white. And I'm trying to really direct my spray down into the edge of the tape to where I don't get as much of the white here. I really want the white to be focused on the edge. Got some splatter happening. Okay, just like that. Follow the tape around. I'm going to go ahead and do this all the way around here, and then we'll peel it off and you'll be able to see the difference that it makes in the look of the canopy. Alright, we're finished with the white. As you can see, when I went to break, I went ahead and put tape along the edge here on the rest of it, just to make it go a little easier, but I'm going to go ahead and peel that off. And even if you put this tape on here, it's only 1 inch, you're likely to still have a little bit of overspray here. It doesn't look like I do, but again, it's one of those things where I will still take my sandpaper and wet sand this area to make sure there's no white there, because when you clear coat it, it will show up if it's there. Alright, so we put the white line on. Let's go ahead and take the blue, this blue trim tape off, and see the difference that it makes. Doing what I told you not to do, using my thumb, but I don't have my razor blade. So peel this off. Alright, now as you can see, we have a nice white separation from the carbon fiber. Really looks like you've got a defined edge that's being rolled over here at the top. We've got the shadowing. Really looks good. When we get the clear coat on this thing, it's really going to pop. So I'm going to go ahead and put the next coat of clear on. I'm going to go ahead and sand that down, put another coat of clear on. That'll be about 4 coats total that we've done with the interclear coats and all. And then that should be the final product. So when we come back, we'll have the final thing here for you to look at. Well, here we are with the finished product. As you can see, we have what looks sort of like a carbon fiber base, that there's a metal overlay that's been painted, and the metal looks like it's tearing back from the nose as the air blows over it as you're flying incredibly fast with your 700E. Turned out pretty good. Like I said, it was my first time doing this big of a tear pattern. Didn't come out perfect. Be sure to watch your edges. There's a couple of spots along here that are not just perfect. Make sure everything's taped down really well. But for the most part, I like it. It's nice and shiny. It's beautiful. And had fun with it. And that's really the key thing, is just to have fun with your canopy. Try new things, new designs. I mean, I realize that it's kind of expensive to get a canopy just to try certain things. But you can try techniques with just poster board or cardboard. Or just pieces of paper, and then once you find something you like and you kind of perfect it, then find some way to incorporate it into your next paint scheme on your canopy. So I'd love to see the pictures of the things that you guys do. Email me at milton.scott@hotmail.com. Contact me on RunRider. Show me the pictures of your canopies that you guys do. I am Ace Helly's Custom Canopies. We'll see you next time.